and the Multivisual electrified us with their show. I hope that you see the power of such an online performance and how we can use this live feeling of an art in our event. That was the Multivisual, and now we are going to peek into the future with Pedro Góes. The key trend predictions for 2021 in virtual event industry are ahead of us, and Pedro Góes is currently the CEO of InEvent, providing an event marketing and sales platform for the Forbes 2000 global companies, including Amazon, Coca-Cola, Santander, Unilever, Boeing, and Citibank, and many, many more. So this moment will be for Pedro and his predictions. And of course, I'll remind you about the possibility to ask questions to our speakers via our Q&A part of our chat on Pine platform. Hi, Pedro.
Hello, good afternoon. How are you doing?
We're doing great, and we hope that you are doing great as well. It's good to have you online. This is the life of the online events that sometimes we have to test our connection and to make sure, double check that we can go live with the next speaker. But I think it's a small thing in terms of that we can have the speakers from all around the globe like you. So the stage is now yours to give us those key predictions. What is going to happen in online events in 2021?
Nice. Thank you very much for the introduction. I think that was a very nice way to get the event started. My name is Pedro. I'm part of InEvent. We are a virtual event platform that has been working with organizers all over the globe for the last 7 years. If you go to the next slide, we're going to cover a little bit about InEvent. So just a quick recap. So we do about 4,000 events a year. So this information is good just to cover how many events we have, the data from 4,000 events a year. So the predictions that we are providing today, they're not actually coming from our insights on a specific event or two events. These are coming from over 138 different countries, from 500 clients that we have today on the platform, and for over 4,000 events. So this data analytics, we're getting anonymized data from our customers, and we are using this to provide insights to you or what we think is going to happen not only in 2021, but also 2022 and the years to come. So if you go to the next slide, we're going to start with one of our key insights for 2021, which we believe the organizer was working on about the hand component. So the event industry is calling this hybrid. That's the name that we are using those days, hybrid events. And what we see our vision and what our customers are doing is that most of them, they didn't have a choice when they got started in 2020 on the line events. So we were, kind of surprised when COVID hit, like all of us. If anyone predicted that they were living the future probably, because no one expected COVID to hit in March 2020. But since that arrived, what we saw is that customers in the beginning, first 2-3 months, didn't do much. So they were more like trying to understand what COVID was and what the restrictions and the lockdowns that were happening. And then around the third quarter of 2020, customers started to say like, now we need to go a step further. We need to see, we need to do something. We need to make a difference. We need to work on the platforms that we're going to deliver our events. Our meetings are really important. They still need to connect the worldwide community. So they started working on virtual events only. And a lot of new platforms become aware at that time. A lot of new companies joined the event space. And InEvent also provided one of the key turnkeys in the market today. And then a lot of customers, they migrated to virtual. So that was the option that they had at the time, migrating to virtual. But then we realized that after 6 months during the pandemic, working from home and only having virtual events was kind of a challenge. A lot of people started to say like, oh, it's nice to work from home. Like, it was like something that a lot of people wanted to do, but it was not what they wanted to do. It's working from home all the time. So something that they wanted to do was really migrate to have the opportunity to work from home, but not all the time. So these customers then started to say, we want to have the option, as just as we are working from home, to stay maybe 2 days working from home and 2 days in the office. We want to be able to balance those things. We want to be able to say, we want to make a choice to be the ones that we're going to decide when we're going to be working from home and when we're going to go to the office. The same thing's happening with virtual events. After 6 months, I would say September, October last year, a lot of customers started to say, like, we want to go back to in-person events. Maybe not all the time. We don't want to do only in-person events. We want to do a mix. We want to do hybrid events. And hybrid events are going to be this combination of having one single platform where you're going to have both options on the system. So you're going to have an option to register for the event, and you're going to decide, I want to go in person or I want to go online. And depending on your selection, you're going to receive two types of mail notifications. One email will contain a link, for example, to set up your computer and access the website of the event platform. The other link will contain the address, for example, to go to the event and be able to access the venue and print, for example, your badge. So these are going to be different experiences, but within the same event. And that's going to be the new channel where we see developing for 2021 and 2022. These new components, we believe, is not going to be across multiple platforms. I think the current setup today that we see is that some events are currently only using virtual platforms, and then we have other companies only providing in-person events. And we have companies, for example, like InEvent, that we are working on hybrid, on having the same vision of both things together. So it will be very, very hard for any company, the event company or event organizer in the future to work with all virtual events. But if you just do virtual, will also be a challenge because a lot of customers will say, I also want to go in person. The value that I perceive when I go in person is also something that I'm willing to pay more for this. So you cannot just do in person, you cannot just do virtual. You need to do at the same time and do really well because it's going to be more competitive. As you just mentioned, now anyone from or any part of the world can join the any event. So you're not competing just locally anymore. You're actually competing globally. So if you want to host, for example, an event, for example, in the US where we're located, but you want to connect with someone from Australia, you can do that globally. So you're actually competing on a global landscape now. So you do need to do those things really well because the company across global events will be much, much stronger. On the next slide, we can talk a little bit more about safety. So how are we going to be able to go back to in person, right? Because today we're working only on virtual yet. There are still lockdown across the globe. Many different countries, for example, the UK is still in strict lockdown, and now at this moment they're not able to go to in-person events. But once we go back to in-person events, we're going to have this possibility to go hybrid very quickly. So to discuss when we think that the migration will be complete, we think that at least 6 to 7 months it's going to take because it doesn't really matter if we validate and we vaccinate only 10 or 20% of the population, right? We need to make sure that everyone is safe, everyone is vaccinated. There are no other strains of the virus today that may reinfect us. So we need to be safe to be able to get in-person events, to be able to get the same scale that we were at 2019. We see that that's going to happen probably end of the year, around third or fourth quarter. But companies should be prepared for hybrid at that time. Because if they only think that in-person events going to be back and they should not be prepared for hybrid events, if they only want to do virtual or if they only want to do in person, they're going to be challenged by the global landscape where these that are better prepared will be able to deploy, for example, very interesting hybrid events on event platforms, and that will be really, really interesting for them. All right. So our procedures that we recommend here is going to be make sure that you are prepared for the migration that's coming. Be sure that you're able to deploy both channels, and also respect the requirements of your government and where you're located, open spaces, social distancing. Sometimes it's not the best way to call social distancing. We recommend you do physical distancing because social sometimes means that you should not call people. You should be close to your family. You should be close to your to people that you know. You should not be socially distanced from them using like your phone or connecting with them virtually. So be physically distant, but don't be socially distant. All right. So that's the clear thing that we should do. Otherwise, we're going to be alone at home, and that's not good, especially during a pandemic where it's really challenging to stay home for a very long time. So you can be physically distant, but don't be socially distant. All right. On the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about what we see from our customers. So this number, 93% of event marketers plan to invest on virtual event. That's coming from surveys that we are doing from our customers. So we have specific events that we run, and we also run surveys, and we also do polls, for example, on our events and also on LinkedIn. And we have seen this data where customers are actually planning to invest more on virtual events. The reason for that is that some customers, they're on their yearly budget. So during 2020, they realized that back to the story that I was telling before, they realized that they needed to invest on virtual platforms. A lot of time just went there and purchased something that someone recommended, something that was quick, usually in less than 1 week. And then they realized that those platforms or those systems or those companies that they have hired had some limitations, right? So then they said, oh, maybe we should prepare better for 2021 now that this is going to be something long term. So the companies from the surveys that we have sent and shared with our customers, they say that 93% of them will invest in virtual events. So they are preparing this on their budget. So part of their yearly budget, they are preparing this, adding a line specifically for virtual events and hybrid events. So they want to include this for their C-level financing. They want to make sure that that's part of the budget. They want to get this approved. So they're sure that they are going to be ahead of the curve when hybrid events are back, and also when in-person events are back together with virtual. So that's one of the things that we see a lot, and that's the correct position. And we recommend that you invest in virtual events and make sure that you have a very well digitally assigned strategy. So when you're working with the events in the upcoming quarters, you're going to be prepared for virtual events altogether. Deploying virtual events sometimes is not just the same characteristics that having an in-person event. It's a combination of multiple things, but digitally capable professionals are also really important here. People that have knowledge on acquisition channels, how to deploy events, the attendee journey, that's also really important to understand that actually the very same steps that the attendee will go through when going through an event. The same process that we usually do when preparing an event, that you have someone that's going to go in person and you know exactly where they're going through and everything. That's also really important in virtual events. So thinking about the attendee journey, the experience they're going to have, exactly step-by-step processes on where they're going to see, how they're going to see it, what's going to be the environment, what are going to be their feelings at that time. That's really, really important. Also, having experienced producers or companies is also really important. Sometimes you can partner with a virtual company and also a virtual producer. You don't need to have, for example, on the same company, all the capabilities. You can merge this with different team members, so you can have the best of both when working at scale. So we recommend, for example, that you get a very good producer also when working with the virtual platforms. And finally, we can apply additional capabilities like 360 live video if you have a studio, if you have the budget to improve and work on a studio. That's also really, really interesting. Analytics and also networking opportunities. So create moments where people can talk one-on-one on the events, even though it's virtual and you're usually virtual, we're talking about having the sessions and watching them. Make sure that you have interactivity throughout the event. You have polling, you have questions, you have Q&A, you have one-on-one meetings, you have group meetings. So these are features that are really important that you have on your virtual platform so that the whole experience for the attendee, again, rethinking about their attendee journey, that's something that they think about and they're seeing the next steps. All right. On the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about strategies to monetize events. So we see that the global market is going to increase a lot. So we're going to close to be $184 billion by 2027. So that number is going to increase a lot based on what we have seen more recently for virtual event platforms before 2019. The reason for that is that virtual events are not going to be anymore just an alternative to what we used to be. We're going to think of them more as a way to deploy a strategy around being able to connect with everyone one-on-one on the platform. So again, the multiple channel strategy that we had deployed before again, with having hybrid and be able to connect both at the same time, that's really important. And thinking about having this part of virtual events as part of your inbound strategy, as part of your marketing strategy. Think of virtual events as not only a thing that that's just an internal summit for the only purpose, but think that as an acquisition channel. So we see our customers that they are actually starting to create paid products on their virtual events. Some of them they're charging tickets. That's one thing. Some of them they're that on the subscription. So for example, if you're part of the subscription platform and you have, for example, some services and you want to get another step further, you offer this part of the subscription. So for example, you're a paid subscriber, you get access to the virtual events on the platform. So you get access, for example, to one-on-one networking on the platform. So these are features that you can actually tie together with today's strategy, so you can benefit from those. When we only had streaming on the platform, so when we had only the webinar world a couple of years ago, that used to be that the only option that you could have with virtual events was you join the session, you're going to be there watching the session for 1 hour, and that's it. And a lot of people started to just pre-record those things and then watch later. So with the virtual world, virtual events specifically, we see that people are going to value more the relationship they're going to develop because interactions are going to be live. So that's not only the live content, the live video, but we're also going to have the option to integrate that with live meetings. So when you're talking one-on-one, you're doing work together, you're having work groups on the platform, and that's going to be really, really important because you cannot do this later. You need to be there live on the session. So that increases the value of the product that you are delivering as part of your strategy. We also have seen some customers that they started to work on delivering an acquisition channel with the virtual event platforms. So what we mean by that is that some customers started to say, hey, we want to use our event. So instead of downloading our report or downloading our ebook or downloading this blog post, we want you to access our event first. So the first point of acquisition, what they're going to put on their landing page, what they're going to use to convert the platform is actually going to be the events. So the events start to be this first point of conversion on the pipeline of many companies that we are seeing. So especially if you are working with SaaS products, digital products, that's a really good strategy because you're not providing more a static conversion file, for example, just a report that's a PDF. You're actually providing a live interactive product that you need to be live to interact. So a lot of people started to postpone this and not postpone anymore so they can interact live on the platform and get the value right away for those relationships, for those meetings, for those products that those companies are using to convert. And finally, if it's working well with you, you can also invest on ads and paid media strategies. So that includes not only running, for example, your own community, but also investing on Google ads and other ads from other platforms. So that's also going to be really good because if your cost of acquisition is really low and you're able to grow this, that's going to be really, really important for having a very good year on 2021. All right. So using events as your acquisition strategies to increase the pipeline, increase the sales on this world where we cannot visit people more in person, that's going to be really, really important as an acquisition strategy where many companies are actually trying to develop their business model and grow during the pandemic. All right. On the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about accessibility. So one thing that we have seen more recently is that companies are also start to work, especially now that we are working from home. A lot of companies are able to recruit from all different locations. So inclusion is really, really important as part of this world. On this next slide, I don't think the slide going, but on slide number 5, we have. So there we go. So we have the possibility to see that some of those events, they're actually starting to provide access to different countries. And we are seeing inclusion to start to be really, really important. Companies are actually working really, really hard on this. So this is the area that we're talking about, Black Lives Matter, all of those movements, they're really, really important. For example, InEvent, as a company, we have, for example, people employed from 13 different countries. So that's really, really important for us. To have the company, working with different countries with different cultures. So we want to be really inclusive and also diversity. The possibility to have people with different capabilities providing knowledge to the company and growing. So that's something that they used to be something that companies wanted to do, but now with virtual event platforms, we realize that companies can actually do this at scale because the remote work and the possibility that the pandemic started to provide, which is more easily working from home and more easily working from their computers, that removes some of the strains that we had on physical limitation locations. So where you're physically located, that's more and more a limitation anymore. And then that's something that we saw a lot of companies to increase the number. So increase about 25% since we last spoke to our customers. So that's really good number. And I think digital products are helping to improve that. Nice. And on the next slide, we're going to see a little bit more about event proofs. So how they're going to use sustainability to be integrated with sector recovery. So that's one thing that we have been seeing a lot also, is that in-person events, they usually get the opportunity to work on a lot of paper and a lot of things that require you to produce an event. And in the end, those events, they're going to also be a challenge to our environmental sustainability. But we see that virtual events are easier to deploy on that scale, so there's less amount of actually it's more sustainable overall. And then we have seen that those events, we also work with multiple companies to start initiatives that are going to be together tied with people more contributing towards sustainability goals. One of those things more recently that we have seen is a lot of companies, they are migrating their events to not only providing something that's going to be not including this, but creating sustainability goals that the attendees can enjoy, the attendees can participate, the attendees can work on to be part of the next step of their journey. All right. And then finally, but not least, I want to talk a little bit about growth. I think that overall, the number of events that we are seeing is going to increase a lot. And the reason for that is that the average cost of running an event is now much lower. And much lower doesn't actually mean that the event will be, for example, easier to run sometimes, or that's going to be you don't need to plan for it, or that you don't need to, for example, to have a budget for it. But what it means is that you're able to scale this on a more flexible rate. So, for example, InEvent provides templates that you can recreate those events. InEvent provides some, and other software platforms also provide some alternatives that can be used to create the next step on those goals. So from having just one event per year, where we have one event and that's one big event, we're seeing that our customers are actually increasing the number of events they are hosting on the InEvent platform. So we are having a lot of recurrent events on the company. When we implement a new customer at InEvent, for example, we are having a lot of repeated events throughout the year because the customers are realizing that hosting one event is much easier, is much straightforward for them. So they're benefiting from integrations, they're benefiting from different capabilities, they're benefiting scale. So instead of just hosting one event where we're going to have 5 speakers, they can now host 20 events where they can have 5 speakers each. So we're actually involving a community of over 100 speakers throughout the year. So the scale of those events, the possibility of us having more people speaking our events and giving the opportunity to events, that's something that's really, really important. That also ties back to the previous point, which is inclusion. Sometimes, it's only limited to 5 people that you need to put on stage, and then people come up with excuses around how to they select the different roles, and then we don't want that to be an excuse anymore. We now can have the possibility to bring 100 people, 200 people and speakers on multiple events per year. So we saw that there's more opportunities for everyone to speak. There are more slots now for everyone to be part of the community, to share their views, to be part of different events. And that's something that really matters to us, because scale and more space and more opportunities is actually what the community is driving for, is using technology as a company to deploy something that's going to be more affordable, easily available to connect everyone. And that's going to make the difference of a lot of people that didn't have opportunities much better. So we are not only benefiting the small companies that never host an event because they have in the budget, and now they can host events because the budget to host one event is lower, but we're also benefiting different communities, different roles. They can now have the opportunity to speak on larger events because of the amount of events that we're going to be hosted in 2021 and on is going to be much, much higher. So these are some of the benefits that we see in virtual events. This strategy should be tied again with the hybrid events. Companies should be preparing for hybrid events, not only in-person events or not only virtual events. Think about a strategy where you're having different channels think about how you want to work from home, but you also want to go to the office. That should be the right combination. Not only working from home, not only working from the office is the right mix between selecting those two options. And that's going to be a very successful strategy, not only for small companies, but also for larger companies that want to be successful with events in 2021 and beyond. All right. So these are some of the insights that I had for today. On my last slide, you're going to have some information. So I'm putting here our website, inevent.com/trial. If you want to access our product, it's free to use for up to 30 days. And if you want to contact me, there's going to be my LinkedIn info. Feel free to connect on LinkedIn, and you can also get my email and we can connect. I'm available anytime if you want to get more info, or even if you get one of our blog post reports and help with one of those things that I mentioned, and I'll be really pleased to answer any questions that you have. Thank you very much.
And yes, we do have some questions, so I'll be happy to pass them to you and get your answers to them. Do you have clients in the educational sector using your platform? What type of formats or use cases can you share?
Nice. That's a really good question. Thanks for asking. The person, but thank you for the question. We have seen the education customers that are actually getting very good traction. So we have different use cases. So there is one where there are students and they want to they're going to go to college. So companies, actually counselors from those universities, they are working on setting up booths on our event platform, so companies can come, they can interact, have meetings, ask questions about the university, about the courses, tuition, all those things, and then they can make a selection. We have seen companies actually hosting those events with up to 800 booths on a single day, so that was really interesting. So we have seen events like that. Also, use case that's really interesting is exchange programs. Sometimes you want to travel and understand more about the company. For example, you're located outside of the US and you learn more about the US colleges, so that's a possibility. We also have seen a lot of trade shows where people are actually now graduating and they want to be connected with job employment opportunities. So they create also the same trade shows. People can go there and connect one-on-one. They set up meetings, and they also do interviews on the actual trade show, and some people are doing the trade show. So we have also seen events like that recently. Also, the mod list, we have a recent use case on our website. So if you want to learn more about our case study, you can go to the website, and on the case study on the website, you'll learn more about this platform that we have.
Thank you for this answer. And our audience is also keen to know what is your main tip for professionals looking to host their first virtual or hybrid event in 2021?
Nice. So I think if you have already been working with in-person events, you are in good hands. You're going to use the same knowledge that you've had for all your in-person events. Planning is really important, making sure that you have great people on your team, and making sure that you do dry runs before the presentation starts. All those things are really important. And then select a platform that allows you to have live support. So live support through the chat is really, really important. Someone that can work directly with you in real time, that can send you emails and everything, because getting those support throughout the event is something that works really well. And we have seen this. InEvent offers 24-hour support, and customers love this feature. Yeah.
And I think one thing we cannot forget that the hybrid or the virtual event is the new normal. So we must get to used to the thought that this is something that we're gonna organize for some time, or maybe it will stay with us forever, as some of the predictions say. And we have the third question in that pile from our viewers. Could you tell us what new features will be on lookout in 2021 when it comes to virtual platforms? What will be sought after when it comes to picking the right platform for your event?
Nice. So I think the virtual platforms, they need to be really flexible to what you have designed in your in your program, in your meeting. That should be one of the goals. In Event, we have been working a lot of video innovation, so that's something that's really important to us. Lower thirds, animations, emojis. We had very recently releases on our software platforms that allow you to self-book meetings. So if you're on a meeting and you want to interact with someone live on the event, that's something that's really important. So you can book meetings, set up meetings, especially if you want to sell or if you want to engage with leads. Also, something that we have seen a very good innovation is around how you are able to move people around, right? You have control over the event, where people go. So if you want to bring them to a trade show, then they go to the live meeting, then they go to the next step, send push notifications. Having this as part of one single platform with all those features, we're able to control, having a control center really powerful. Those are the things that draw customers to InEvent, for example, in the most recent years. So I see that the innovation that we're going to see in virtual platforms is going to be really, really good, because now we have a lot of customers coming to virtual event platforms. So the innovation and the capability to do more R&D and development is going to be expedited because of this. But for example, in Event, we have seen great product demos recently on our releases that we do every month. Yeah.
Thank you very much for answering those questions. I'm sure that dozen other questions
Of
could
course.
have been answered on the topic, but we also have a very tight agenda, as we have 3 stages running in parallel, showcasing both the technology, engagement, and management of those events. So thank you very much for giving us a peek into the future. What can we expect in all those aspects in 2021, or maybe even 2022? Who knows how long we have to stay friendly with the thought that this is our new normal. Thank you very much once again for being with us for the Spark of Change.
Thank you very much. Have a great and continue with the event. Bye bye.
Thank you very much.